Good day, everyone. I am James Antone J. Baybay, taking up Bachelor of Science in Criminology. This is my second video, a continuation of my discussion about institutional correction. Before I will proceed to the next topic, let us have a recap and recall of what I have discussed from my first video. So I have discussed on my first video the definition of institutional correction. So what is its importance? So the definition of institutional correction are those people who are put into jails or prison to have rehabilitated and to be secured for committing their crimes. So in order for them to be secured and rehabilitated, they have to put into some facility that is secured and observe everything that to make their selves to change for betterment of themselves. So it is very important, especially to our community, to our society, because it helps to provide peace and order, and for us to be safety from the harm of others. So this gives a very important role to our society because it helps us to guide and promote our peace and order community. And in order for it to be implemented and effective, let us unite and make a community orientation or some seminars for it to be productive and to be able for the community to have their knowledge and ideas. So it is very important, especially to us students taking up this criminology course, because in the future we can probably experience or meet this kind of person. So in order for us to have these techniques, or how do we do on what do we do for them, so it is the good concept, especially to us students. So from my first video, we also tackle about the classes of prisoners and their types. So there are prisoners that called very high profile prisoners. These high profile prisoners refer to the prisoner that is committing crime very hilariously or having dangerous act in their community. So it is very harmful, especially to the young ones, to the youths. So they have to be rehabilitated or put into a security facility. Then there are also prisoners who have committed their crimes that only in a light way, or for example, snatching or bullying. We can say that bullying is a hilarious way of crime. So snatching, for example, because maybe he or she did that thing in order for them to have supplies or lack of food. So because of that poverty, it made the people to do harm from others. So it is quite alarming, especially to our government today. And also, in my discussion, it also gives its functions, its responsibility to the community. It is very important to know on how we could implement this in a right way, that we are not putting others in danger, or having this process correctly to have a fair treatment because we have this called human rights. It is very important, especially to us humans, because we are not born perfect. Then I have also discussed the other institution. This is called the non-institutional corrections. So these non-institutional corrections refers to those prisoners that have put into prison but still can go out into the community. So they are given the probation and parole. So these persons are only selected. So they will be so lucky. So it's very in this process you should be do your part. This person and only the persons that have shown goodness or kindness inside a prison. But this particular process only it is very selected, or you have been observed by the official that you have shown kindness inside a prisoner. So you can probably a lucky person. But in this matter, it doesn't show that your crime that you have committed, it is right to do, but not. It is only a way of giving chances to the prisoners. It is their one way to produce an effective and in implementing this kind of institution. So for now, let us proceed for this another topic. This is also gives some significance, especially to this process in this institution. So this is the several prison reforms. We should also consider that our government should have its reforms or improvements to give to the community or to show to the community that they are doing well in having this kind of institutions. So first, England, the age of modern reforms, the time prisoners started receiving more care. Concept of rehabilitation was introduced. Governments around the world started reconsidering the views on solitary confinement, which was primary source of the increased numbers of insane, suicidal, and catatonic prisoners. During World War II is the beginning of the formation of large amounts of war prison camps and concentration camps. Nazi government formed over 300 detention centers in which gypsies and other criminals detained without judicial process. They were eventually killed on an unprecedented massive scale. So these particular reforms only shows that all governments or all countries shows its reformation in order to provide their prisoners the effective ways on how they could change them or give them chances of their lives. So it is very important and they have to think of it, especially today. There are still many countries thinking and having experiments or researches inside the prison in order how they could possibly resolve or solve this and have its reformation. It is very important because, as we can see, all the prisoners are not they are not having this kind of process in the right way. They are being treated very abusively that it could make themselves killed inside the prison. There are also, for example, in our country, Philippines, inside the prisoners in the Philippines, they are experiencing abuse. Some others also experience being raped or getting killed inside because they are having these gangs or illegal executions or illegal ways. So it is very alarming because we human beings all deserves second chances. And in that matter, it is our concern because what if our family is or related to ours is inside in that prison, then he actually experienced those kinds of harassment. But it is not good because in prison we are giving or providing it prisoners to be rehabilitated and make themselves change. It is not for them to be punished. It is very wrong. And next, we will discuss also to this following institutions supporting institutions to be effective. Concept of probation service. So this concept of probation service, it comes to our mind the importance or having chances in ourselves. In 1991, modern prison system was finalized. The first prison intended solely for holding of inmates in permanent isolation was formed. So they have this called supermax. Prisons became widespread across entire United States, with over 40 of them being active. The year 2005, prisoners are held in the 23 hours long period of cell isolation, with occasional communal yard time, work, educational programs, and meals in cafeteria. As 2006, over 9 million people are imprisoned worldwide, with United States leading in the rate of incarceration, 743 per 100,000 people. So we can say that the United States, maybe they are having the high number of criminalities that is alarming to their government. But in this matter, the United States also has, it's very populated. They have more people. And in our country, Philippines are only million or above that something. So it is a lesser people. So we can say that also in relation to prisoners, we also have its little prisoners. In this process, they are giving this probation service. In this way, they are giving the reformation. It all shows reformation and improvements because they are showing or giving programs or any activities that could help the prisoner to change himself, of making him or her more productive as a human being. So now, we can say these different types of prison. We can say that time changes from time to time. So also, our types of prisons and this kind of imprisonment also changes. Not only for the people, but for their facilities and their kind of prison they have. So let's stop this picture. As we can say, this is the antiquity times. So we can say that this prison is very in a dark room and full of cobwebs. We can say it is very dirty, and we can say that this prison is having a very little rooms that can only occupy by one person. Next, we can also say that time have changes, and also in the all prisons around the country have its changes. We can say this another picture, the modernity times. So here, as we can say, it is more clean than the antiquity times. We can say that they are, in this matter, they are giving the way of reformation or transformation of their rooms, their facilities, in many ways, especially to the way they implement their incarceration. They are making these prisoners more comfortable, rather example like that. than the, than the past antiquity times. But it is not good to be in prison because you can only see one people at a time, so it is not good. It is always better to do things right and think first before doing such things in life. So next, we will also tackle for the religion's role in prison. So we can say that inside the prison, there is also a religion. So it is a great thing because even if you are in a prison, you can still have your prayers or have your seminars, or because we have different religion and different way of having faith and churching God. Religion's importance to prison is always about its contribution to the individual growth or development of a particular inmate. Focuses to perceive role of religion in helping lower the chances of recidivism among inmates. Focuses on the inmate value that the religious have for inmates through their help in their coping and survival. So this religion help every inmates and prisoners to have their activeness in the religion. They can still have this practice inside the religion. In this matter, it helps them to change their minds for a better person. It is also one way of having this effective way in rehabilitating and changing this kind of prisoners. So also we will move to the influence and practice of religion in prison. So it has a big influence to the prisons or to the incarceration of practice in religion inside the prison. So in correctional setting is as old as the history of prisons. The entry of religion into prison was probably carried out by religious men who themselves were in prison. The early Christian church granted asylum to criminals who would otherwise have been mutilated or killed. Releasing prisoners during Easter time at the request by church authorities to pardon or reduce sentences for offenders remained for centuries, with the latter still in existence in a modified form. So the influential of religion inside a prison is a very big effect to the prisoners, because we can show or put into our minds that having faith or being in a religion is very important in helping our mind, in helping thinking our mind to a better way. So this is very important to be applied or adapt into ourselves. Next is the church jurisdiction inside the prison. So also the church is included in the jurisdiction of the imprisoned person. So church jurisdiction became a substitute for corporal or capital punishment. In medieval times, the Roman Catholic Church developed penal techniques, later by secular states, such as the monastic cell that served as punishment place for criminal offenders. In 1593, the Protestants of Amsterdam built a house of correction for women and one for men in 1603. So we can say that even in Middle times or ancient times, they are separating the men and the women. So in this matter, it is very important because we have different characteristics and treatment. So in Rome, in 1903, the Sisters of Good Shepherd built correctional facilities for women, and in Pope Clement XI built the famous Michael Prison as the house of correction for younger offenders with separation, silence, work, and prayer emphasized. As late as the 18th century, the Vatican prison still served as a model prison designed for Europe and America. So we can show that the church jurisdiction gives a big effect to the role, to the prison or in the incarceration process, because they provide the separation of men from women. And also in the Middle times, they also have these young offenders. So we can say that even in the ancient civilization or these Middle times, there are still offenders that are very young. So it is not good to our community. So now let's proceed to the customs and common laws with West Jersey and Pennsylvania Quakers. So in early settlers of North America brought with the customs and common laws of England, including the pillory, the stacks, and the whipping post. During the 18th century, isolating offenders from fellow prisoners became the acceptance correctional practice. So they have given this correctional practice as they're isolating, they are giving this practice in one way of isolating offenders. So it is very important to isolate and secure a particular person who have committed crimes or being an offender. The long-term isolation combined with in-depth discussions with clergy would lead inmates become penitent, sorry for their sins, and the term penitentiary was derived. So this process shows the chances to every prisoners that they could have these regrets or they can put sorry, but still they will conduct the due process, treated like a prison, put into prison, and rehabilitated for corrections. The next is the primary responsible for many of the prison's reforms. This primary responsible reforms gives very important role to the imprison or this incarceration process. Also, develop the idea of substituting imprisonment for corporal punishment and combining the idea of the prison with workhouse. So this way we can show that they are providing prisoners in showing their skills or giving these activities in order for them to not get bored inside a prison. But still, in this process, they are showing to themselves that they are regretting from their sins they have done. But still, it depends upon on how that particular person committed that kind of criminal act. Because if you commit a crime that is very hilarious or very dangerous to the community, so probably you will put into a prison or isolated in a one person because you will put a caution or danger to the community or even to the other prisoners, because there are some prisoners that have given these cases only for light crime or having this very light crime that is considered to be, they have chances to be given the probation and parole. Then also, they have this Walnut Street Jail in Philadelphia. The prototype and regime that in style reflects the Quakers' belief in man's ability to reflect through reflection and remorse. So next, we will now discuss to this another system or process that could help to be effective of implementing this incarceration and imprisonment. So this is what they call the Auburn system. So this Auburn system in 19th century, solitary confinement was thought to serve the same repenting purpose as the older penitentiary. Believed in education as a tool for reducing criminal activity, also assisted in the growth of religion in prison because of the limited budgets of correctional institutions. So yes, it is true that if you have education or you have been put into a school or studying profession, you will cause a less or having this organized mind because you have these thoughts or positive thoughts or ideas. You will be taught with the proper way on how we can roll in a particular society. You will be given guidance and correction. It is very unfair also because of poverty. Some people don't have this education, but still, and for that, they could make these crimes, especially to those poor people. They commit crimes for their needs, personal needs, to provide their families and give their children the way of life. So in this matter, it is a great concern to each one of us. So for this to be stopped or minimize this particular incident, we could probably help them or provide them, even if that thing in providing, even if it is very small thing, it will give a big effect to the community because helping in a small thing will become for a bigger and successful thing. So let us not be selfish. Be productive to yourself and helpful. Be responsible and think for others and care for them. Chaplains were often called upon to be the sole educator in many American prisons. The schooling often consisted of the chaplain standing in dark corridor with a lantern hanging from the cell bars while extolling the virtues of repentance. So they are having this kind of person or organization or this particular process that could be help them to educate or to give education to American prison. So we can say that even if you're inside the prison or in jails, you can be treated or given education. So it is also one way in promoting and having this effective rehabilitation and promotion to make changes for themselves. So in this matter, it is very important to consider this also and maybe adapt this, or maybe now our country, Philippines, is adopting this kind of procedure. They provide activities, seminars, or this kind of education in order for our inmates to be productive and make themselves changes for them. So now, we will tackle also the religious groups and volunteers. So this is now will come the different organization or non-government organization. So they give this some seminars. Yes, because we can go inside the prison or jails and conduct seminars. But in this matter, we will observe the security system. Yes, we can conduct seminars. Some of its instructors or facilitators will have this kind of activity. It is their one way to give or provide the prisoners, showing them that it is not, even if you're inside the prison, it is not your last day or last last day of execution for yourselves. In this way, they are giving chances for themselves. So it is very important and it is good to hear for us because it could help and make this reformation process. So along history, corrections that can be tracked back to the beginning of prisons. Many religious groups have entered correctional facilities to provide religious services to inmates. So this is one way of some religions group to go inside the prison and provide some seminars about how do we believe the Almighty gods, because we have different gods in different religion. We have different beliefs and different cultures. So these are called maybe some pastors or giving their experiences to give guidance to the prisoners on how they could be changed themselves into better person even if they are inside the prison. So Mad Ballington Booth, the daughter-in-law of William Booth, who founded the Salvation Army and one of the famous advocates for volunteers in corrections. So in the whole country, there is this Mount Wellington Booth give a big role to the correction system because this particular person is only a volunteer, but still, even in this way, he could help other people and not an ordinary people because this people is a prisoner. So it is very alarming because maybe that particular person will do harm for him, but not. They provide the proper security process during these volunteer activities. Today, volunteers are vital to religious programs, and without them, inmate participation would surely be limited. Faith representatives would be unable to minister to the large number and variety of inmates. Yes, it is only voluntary because when you are inside a prison, you should always be flexible and transparent because each one of us have different characteristics, attitudes, the way we act, the way we judge or say to other people. We are not thinking that we are already hurting them. So if you will become to this kind of volunteer person, you should know to yourself how to adapt them or be with them to think this kind of process. So it is quite hard for some volunteers. But still, they are giving this or having this kind of activities. So it is very rightful thing to do. Many older correction institutions are being refurbished or destroyed, replaced with facilities designated for better observations and security. Yet, the initial influence of religion on the philosophy and the design of penitentiary will surely remain in correctional history. So we can say that the religious or church or many church organization or religions help to promote and provide the effective and efficient way on how they could change and improve the attitude and characteristic of a particular person inside the imprisonment process or incarceration. But still, in this correction process, always remain in the history. But still, even if it is in our history, we should always take this as part of our lessons because it is very important to know and have the knowledge and idea of our past events because it gives us the process of knowing how could we improve and promote ourselves and be a great person and a great influencer rather maybe in the following days or our lives or in the future. And now, let's proceed to the difference of prison from antiquity to modernity. So, during the antiquity and modernity, we should also know and how it comes to their changes or improvements, and also in their facilities on how they put changes on it. Many inclinations of crime and punishment have observed from the human perspectives from the antiquity to modern times. Criminal justice and criminology have evolved due to significant contributions from a diverse array civilization. So as the times pass by and changes from time to time, it is very important and shows the reality that some people, not only the people, changes, but also things or these kind of facilities. The civilization process also have to be improved because of evolvement and has to show its significance contribution to a diverse array civilization. Prisons in the antiquity world were intended by those in power to function as sort of halfway for the accused awaiting trial or condemned awaiting death. So it is very important that we should see its changes, because in order to have an efficient and effective way of implementing this kind of process, it should be have its changes and evolvement from time to time. And this matter, it only shows how important on having or giving the ideas from each one of us in order for this to be for this implementation to have its progress for the future use. Although these prisons changed little during antiquity, the perception and the understanding of prisons varied by social groups from the law makers to the common man. In order to understand how the conceptual perception of prisons change with different social groups, one must first understand what prisons were meant to be and what they actually were. So in having these changes, we should also consider, or the government should also consider, of what really is meant to be, or what is his purpose of having this kind of imprisonment. It is very important to know or have the idea on how we could have these changes in order to have its result a good way to the community. We should also think on the effect of having this improvement in our society, because people's attitude and characteristics also changes from time to time. So it is very important to have these considerations and exceptions in order to have a progressive and effective kind of governance and changes, especially when it comes to the imprisonment or kind of incarceration process. So now, we could ask our minds, or each one of us, of what is the important or goodness of having these prisons to our society. Why is prison good for society? Do it gives importance or problems to our society? And now, we should say that prisons acts as a deterrent So offenders are locked up due to the violent nature of their crimes to stop others from doing the same. So in this process, prison or imprisonment gives an important role to our society because it prevents and holds a particular person in having or making another crimes in a certain community. So in order for us to prevent this kind of criminal act, we should have and do this kind of prison process. It allows the government to not only punish criminals, but to remove them from society. So we are not imprisoning person not only to give them punishment, but also to give them this kind of rehabilitation that made themselves or give them the second chances of their lives. A prison sentence means that without a doubt, an individual in committing crime no more crimes for the duration of the sentence, which can be anywhere from 2 years to 150. It is a form of punishment and depriving criminals of their freedom makes our society safer. So in this matter, we could see that we are having this imprisonment or incarceration process in order to have a safer society, a peace and order, and to have an efficient way of living of every one of us individual living in a particular community and society. So this imprisonment also gives punishment, especially to those person or criminal person done a very hilarious crimes or killing someone without any valid reason or just for his own good. So it is in this imprisonment, it is one way to have this kind of person put into an isolation or get even punished. Prisons can help people learn to cope with life outside through rehabilitation, improve their education and qualifications, through counseling, providing an education, gaining skills through work, and providing a structure to their daily life. So yes, it is very important to have and conduct this kind of counseling process and many kinds of activities that molds them or molds every prisoners to get themselves involved for improvement and changes. And also they can be provided education, as what I have said a while ago. Even if you are inside a prison, you will be given chance of education. But in this matter, it also have its limitations because not all are given this kind of activity, especially to those person or individual for having this high profile prison or prisoners. This makes them less likely to reoffend. So they give and have this process of imprisonment in order for them to not give revenge for a certain person or reoffend them, because some other people always give revenge for their own good, and they think for it that doing this revenge is good for them. In some prisoners are taught how to become laborers and helpers, which is a government endorsed scheme due to investigations into the human rights of persons. The conditions in prisons have improved, therefore a larger amount of taxpayers' money goes on prisons. So Prison might provide opportunities for rehabilitation, such as a drug and alcoholic treatment, education, or counseling. And at that very least, someone who is in prison cannot commit a crime in the community. An effect criminologists can call incapacitation. Mental health support in prison was found to reduce misconduct incidents. For example, in the Cebu City, they have this process of dancing inmates. So it is one way of giving these positive thoughts to the prisoners, even if they are inside the prison. There are also jails and prison that are having these kind of activities, especially during this time of bare months. They're making paroles and make money of it. They're selling it outside the prison. So it is one way to give chances or to show the skills, the hidden skills of every prisoners, and also they can provide themselves even if they're inside the prison. So we can say that it is very important and effective way of giving these prisoners their having these human rights policies, because they're given chances even if they are isolated or put into bars. They are still given chances to make rules as a human being even if they are behind the bars. So it is very important way of having this productive and effective way of having rehabilitation and counseling process to every prisoners. There has been a recent push-up to put victims rather than criminals at the heart of the justice system. This is important as it helps the victim to achieve closure if they feel that the prison is a fair punishment. Imprisonment provides advantage to overcome a peace and order community. So what I had said a while ago, I am correct that having this imprisonment is one way, an effective way of having this safer and peace and order community. So even if this kind of process, it should be always considered and adapted to every kind of institution or governance. It protects society from dangerous and violent criminals in which they can be kept and put into security. That's why what I've said a while ago, that if a person committed a violent crime or very hilarious crime that cannot be forgivable, he or she will be put into an isolation area or they're called special room for him to be separated from other prisoners because of this very violent action and deserve punishment. So it is also stops offenders in reoffending as they are locked away to a jail facility. This acts as respected and upheld that can result into vindication that provide a certain prisoner to have itself be rehabilitated. So we can see all of these thoughts and ideas, knowledge, that importance of having this imprisonment or incarceration in a certain society. So it is one way of having a safer community, to give the people in a certain society their safetyness. They could go to a certain place and enjoy without hesitation, without having the problems, without any thinking of what will happen to them, because nowadays there are still places in our country that are having this kind of violent criminals or having this presence of criminalities. Especially when you go to a Cebu City and you are just holding a phone and you're having a call to someone, then you will just walk in a hallway or public places. It is not good to have this kind of activity because some of the people there will just get your cell phone or snatch it, then run away from you. Then, if you are a first timer of that place, you should be aware because this problem is still existing today. It is a big problem and concern each one of us, especially to us tourists. And also, for example, in having a good and peaceful community, like here in Siquijor, even if the key of your motorcycle, you will just left it in your motorcycle, nothing would happen to it. No one will get into it because maybe also in our population we are very less and most of us are organized and having these good deeds and practice this all the time. We are very humble to accept and be grateful in having many tourists in our community. Even if we live in a small island, we are still having a happy community because of the absence of criminality, less of danger activities or dangerous people. So it is very effective to have this peaceful and peace and order community. But of course, it depends upon how a particular government implement his ordinances and rules, or of how he will be very strict on implementing this. As I have observed in our province, our government is very strict because they always conduct checkpoints and adopt this strict implementation of having a curfew every night. It is very important because it is one way to have this effective and efficient way in implementing a peace and order community. But if you have this kind of problem, it can be still improved or changed, even if it will come into a long way. But if you start today, the time will come that particular community will change and have its progress to show a peace and order community. It is very also helpful to help each one of us, not only for yourselves, but to think for the others, for the sake of others. Help them, provide them. If you can give something or anything, then give. It is better to give than to receive. Always remember that. So now, we will also tackle on the prison system in the Philippines is effective. So it will come to our mind that if the imprisonment or incarceration in the Philippines is effective. So here, prison is an important and integral part of the criminal justice system in every country. Used appropriately, it plays a crucial role in upholding the rule of law by helping to ensuring that alleged offenders are brought to justice and by providing a sanction for serious wrongdoing. So, it is very important to give a serious sanction or punishment for a certain person of having this being violent offender to his community and society. As of 2019, the Philippines population rested at 108.31 million people, and 215,000 of those people were incarcerated. Therefore, the Philippines has an incarceration rate of about 200 per 100,000 citizens. So it is quite alarming, because even if we are, it is quite alarming because in having this kind of situation, it is still in the high numbers, and it is very dangerous if it will go to a higher number also. There are 933 prisons running in the Philippines. So it has 933 prisons in all places in our country. Unfortunately, they are mismanaged and overcrowded. So as what we have discussed in the first video, during the administration of Duterte, we have experienced these violence actions when implementing this strict implementation of catching or having these offenders, because they probably put into jails, and the result of that is overcrowding. So if they will have this kind of process, they will also produce or build many jails for them to have this effective, and always consider this as a problem to make another institutions or facilities to have its improvements. This data probably shows the extreme problems like overcrowding and long-term isolation can cause hallucinations, depression, psychological regression, and even cognitive dysfunction. Along with poor living conditions, many inmates are part of the penal labor system. Thought to be rehabilitated, prison labor is common. In 2018, the Philippines held the 6th highest prison population out of 29 Asian countries. There are facts about the reality effectiveness of incarceration of the Philippines. Severe overcrowding as the government strictly implemented actions that can possibly end up crime. Many issues about the extrajudicial killing, that some persons are hired to kill or involve the use of illegal drugs. In this matter, they forget the process of human rights policies. The Philippine government, despite prison overcrowding, lack of information, technology systems and expertise, and inadequate training, continues to take concrete steps towards the improvement of its prison and jail conditions and the terms of offenders. High death tolls were experienced due to overcrowding. So unfortunately, if your certain jail or prison will have its overcrowding, it will probably result to get the prisoners to be killed, because they will maybe experience suffocation, lack of health facilities, and the uncontrollable outbreaks of pulmonary tuberculosis. Vigilant justice was excluded during the war on drugs in the Duterte administration. Corruption is always visible to everyone and can also be present in the prison. Some high-class prisoners do have their special treatment by taking bribes of jail officials. However, the improvement of the corrections system and the inmates' successful reintegration into the mainstream society is not the sole responsibility of the correction system. So it is very important to have this kind of process because the government plays a dominant and significant role in the correction and rehabilitation of offenders. The Philippine correction system is composed of the institutions in the government, civil society, and the business sector which are involved in the confinement, correction, and restoration of those individuals charged or convicted of delinquent acts or crimes. So in general, of what I have discussed, it is very important to have this implementation and to have this be effective to our society because it promotes and help and have this peace and order community and give to the people their safetyness in a certain community. So as I end this video, I hope that you have understand and put into your mind always all the important information and do not forget to wear your mask, follow the health protocols in order to each one of us to be put into safety and let us help one another in ending this crisis that our country is facing today. So everyone always keep in safety and always just stay at home and live your life to the fullest. Thank you for watching.